All right, so if you're here, you've probably either thought about, tried, or are literally on the verge of saying, F it, I'm going all in on my dreams. But at the same time, you're probably also thinking, how is this actually supposed to work? Like, practically speaking, how am I gonna eat if I'm dropping everything to do this? And if that's the case, then I definitely feel you, because that's exactly what I've been documenting here on YouTube, my journey to a life of maximum fulfillment after going all in on my YouTuber and content creator dreams. So today I wanted to bring you into my thought process and my approach to tackling the more practical aspects of what probably seems like a pretty impractical thing to do. Going all in with no real safety net other than my faith in God and a dream that He gave me back in 2017, because maybe there's something you can apply to your own journey. Okay, but before we get into the practical considerations, if you're new here, you might want to catch up on where we're at and what's been going on in the journey so far. So I made a list of videos. It's in the description. You can check those out. I think it will help to make this video make a little bit more sense. All right, so let's get into it, because also it's been a minute since we've had a proper sit down and heart to heart, and I think it makes sense to do one now, especially since we're about to shift into these more practical considerations. So real quick, let's just review what we've established so far on the journey. Recap. All right, so we're bringing my little trusty friend so that we stay on task, because you know, sometimes I like to ramble and I don't want to ramble today. So basically we started by talking about the fact that we're documenting this journey to a life of maximum fulfillment, right? And so for me, I identified that a life of maximum fulfillment, or your dream life, life of your dreams, whatever you want to call it, for me, there were three aspects that I felt like would make me feel the most fulfilled. Those things were being in my purpose, walking in my purpose, doing the thing that God put me here to do. The second thing would be being with the love of my life, my person, my soulmate, whatever you want to call it. And then third is financial freedom, get into the bag, abundance, never having to think about money. So right now we established that we're basically focusing in on that third aspect, really stepping into the financial abundance that we know is there after having gone all in on this dream. And so in my case, going all in meant letting go of what I was doing before, which was being a fitness professional, working in the fitness industry, and transitioning into content creation and YouTube. So essentially I'm going from, I had basically built a pretty successful business in fitness, and I'm starting basically from scratch as a YouTuber. And so far in documenting this journey, we've basically been exploring my spiritual approach to going all in. So essentially looking at how I use my spirituality to guide me on this path, but also how I use it, especially when facing the more like real life challenges. For example, with the whole landlord situation, right? So essentially we've established the way that faith is allowing me to sustain myself mentally to basically continue on a very non-traditional path, no matter what the circumstances may look like now, because we already know we shift into a whole other reality. And so now that we have the spiritual foundation and basis set, I feel like it makes sense to start to shift into the more practical aspects and considerations of going all in on your dreams. So the question I've been thinking about is basically, how do I go about funding the dream while we wait for things to really take off? Because I think usually sort of the more typical content creator story is that it's usually someone that was working a 9-to-5 job that was also passionate about content creation, started doing their thing blew up, then they left their job, and now they're doing it full time, right? I took a very different approach because I never really went into the 9-to-5 world in the first place. I've always sort of taken an entrepreneurial, dang, I can't talk today. I've always taken an entrepreneurial approach to work, right? And sort of followed my passions throughout life to kind of get me into a place where I could like really find fulfillment and just general happiness. 9-to-5's just the whole vibe of it, the culture, everything just never really aligned with my spirit. So for now, we're kind of leaving 9-to-5 as like a last resort and probably never will be an option. I think if anything, worst case scenario, I'd just go back to school. Because technically I'm in a graduate program for nutrition at NYU and I took a leave of absence. So I guess at any point I could just be like, yo, let me come back and finish this degree. But we're not even thinking about that because we ain't gonna have to do that. Essentially, what we're trying to show is that you can go all in. It's gonna be a little crazy, but you can go all in and start to do YouTube or content creation or whatever the case might be full time. And it's just a matter of, you know, getting scrappy and creative with how you're gonna go about funding the dream if you don't necessarily have like the 9-to-5 setup. And so while I was sort of thinking about the answer to the question for me, right, in my situation, having gone all in, I started to realize that I just have very specific standards for how I'm going to fund the dream in the meantime. And so it's not just like, oh, death to the 9-to-5 or whatever the case might be, right? But it's really just staying true to myself as I embark on this journey, as I go through this journey. So let me bring the laptop in here because I already feel myself starting to ramble. Okay, so when it comes to the standards, for me, there are 3 main things that are super important. The first thing is making sure that I'm staying in my purpose, because remember, the whole goal is to get to a life of maximum fulfillment. For me, that's being in my purpose, right? And so I decided that whatever I do to help fund the dream, it has to still be in the realm of production, creativity, being in front of a camera, being on set, just anything in the production world that would help me to either be able to transfer skills quickly and easily and directly to YouTube, or could literally just help me to make all of this even better, right? The other part of staying in my purpose is also making sure that whatever I'm doing to fund the dream, it's not getting in the way of the main thing being the main thing. So meaning my main thing is YouTube, right? I don't want to get some job that's going to basically take me away from YouTube being the main thing because it just demands so much of me and my time and my energy, right? So really managing that energy and making sure that this remains the main thing. And part of that is because my experience, right? Like when I was working in fitness, it took so long to even start this YouTube channel because I was so I guess like preoccupied and honestly overworked. Because making ends meet in fitness can be tough, right? And before I had taken my business online and built like a high ticket coaching business, which really like opened up my life financially, not so much in terms of time though. I was running around. I was teaching classes and I was running to clients and back and forth. I was all over the place and it was crazy and I was exhausted and I didn't have the energy to put into YouTube, right? And so I realized like, okay, because I have that experience, now I know that whatever I do, it can't eat all of me. It can't consume me in a way where I can't do what I know I'm supposed to be doing. So that's one, staying in my purpose. Okay, so the second point of having standards when it comes to funding the dream for me is remembering that this whole thing is about getting to a life of maximum fulfillment. And so anything that I do to help me to fund this dream, it needs to be something that respects the parameters for my life of maximum fulfillment, right? So the 3 things that are really important to me: the financial, the love aspect, the being in my purpose, but also just like what I actually want life to feel like on a day-to-day basis. I'm not trying to be one of those people that's like always running around like a chicken with my head cut off. I don't take pride in saying I'm busy all the time, right? Like I really want to be able to have time for myself, to take care of myself, to take care of my health, my spirit. Like not sleeping isn't an option for me. I have to sleep. Like it's not gonna work. You know what I'm saying? So anything that I do to fund this dream needs to respect the boundaries of my life of maximum fulfillment and what I want it to feel like and what I want to experience, right? Because ultimately, I'm not trying to sacrifice my health. There's just certain things that you literally need to do this in the first place, right? And like I can't sacrifice them, and I don't think you have to. Like I really don't think you have to. And then the third standard is letting go of the old life, even though it seems like it makes the most sense in terms of being able to like quickly amass funds. So specifically what I mean is that there have been times on this journey, probably before this last year. This last year I really like just dug my heels into the ground with it and was like, nope, we gonna do this like full out. I'm gonna grit my teeth. It's gonna be hard, but it's okay, right? So before, I used to be tempted to sort of go back into high ticket fitness coaching, because like I said, that was like my last sort of point in my fitness career where I was like, oh yeah, it's time for us to switch gears and throw this away and go all in. But even when I like had originally made that decision, I was always kind of going back and forth, because I was like, but I know that I could just make like 10K real quick. Like I can make this bag real quick. But in reality, it wasn't quick. Like there's a lot that goes into a high ticket fitness coaching business. And again, one of the things that sort of like came up for me as I was building that was that I literally had no time or energy left to do YouTube. Right? So I was like, yeah, I gotta go. And also what I'm realizing is that in this life of maximum fulfillment, I'm a YouTuber. So it's like really, like I said, letting go of that old life, the old identity, so that you can actually start to experience the life that you want, right? The identity that you know is truly you. And it's not to say that that's like an easy process, right? It's complicated. Like I said, it took me a long time to go back and forth. Then I really, sunk my feet into the ground into it. But then, there were new challenges to face, right? But the reality is I know now, and I could feel like, okay, but I'm getting a lot closer to where I really want to be. So yeah. Okay. So once I established the standards, or sort of like the parameters to funding this dream, which were staying in my purpose, remembering that the goal is a life of maximum fulfillment. So not putting myself in any situation that would detract from being able to experience that feeling of fulfillment. And then 3, letting go of the old way of being, even if it seems like it makes the most sense because it's super lucrative, so that you can actually shift into this new way of being and thing that you really want to be and see for your life, right? So once I basically established those parameters, the next question was, how do I know what to do and where to go and what to pursue in order to fund the dream, knowing that I still had to stick to these parameters? And so for me, it always goes back to God, which I'm sure you probably know that already. But basically, I just went to God and was praying for direction. Like, okay, God, I want to make sure that I execute on the instructions that you gave me for this YouTube channel, but what should I do? What am I supposed to do in the meantime to fund this dream while we're waiting for everything to sort of come through, right? And it's funny because at that time when I was really like trying to, do this deep dive of finding the right fit to funding the dream, a lot of different things were happening. I started to look at, especially after the prayer, I started to look at the fact that I said, okay, well, let's think about being in front of the camera, right? And I thought back to that Under Armour job that I randomly got, right? And I also thought back to a lot of other modeling gigs that I got without an agent, not being signed to a modeling agency. They just sort of kind of fell into my lap, right? Like, yes, I was in the fitness industry, but I was getting a lot of random jobs where people were finding me randomly. I felt like it was random. Obviously it was God, but the point is I felt like it was kind of like God being like, hello, ding, ding, ding. I've been trying to show you a direction this whole time and you've been thinking all this other stuff, right? And then it started to make me remember a whole cascade of things, like the number of times that people had asked me if I had an agent. I remember this one girl being like, yeah, I thought you had an agent because, and I was like, what? Or, people mistaking me for an actress or joking. Oh, I thought they were joking, saying that, oh, like you're such an actor or you're such an actress or, whatever the case might be, right? And it actually took me all the way back to high school in a performing arts class that I had to take. It was like one of those graduation requirements. Anyway, the head of the department, he was adamant because he was the one that taught the class that I took. And he was like, I'm gonna put you on stage. And I was like, Mr. Parisi, no, you're not. Because I play sports. And so, you know, the extracurricular time after school was like from 4 p.m. on. And I'm like, I'm gonna be in practice. So how am I gonna make it to rehearsals? Also, I've never even done a play. Like I've never even been in a church play. You know what I'm saying? So it's funny because I never paid attention to these things in the past, just cause like, I'm like, well, I don't have any experience in that. And also, I don't know, I guess just at the time I was so focused on just finding a very clear and direct path, and these things seemed so, you know, kind of superfluous, right? Like, anyway, that's a discussion for a whole other day. But the point is, after that prayer, I started to really look back at things and start to realize, well, hey, you're already kind of doing a lot of these things, like in front of the camera, right? Like modeling, and, you know, maybe you should look into acting and things like that. So remember I said that there were a lot of other things happening. So at this time, I'm having all these flashbacks. I'm thinking about a lot of things. I'm questioning a lot of things, asking about God for direction. And I get an email from a casting director about a job, right? It was going to be in fitness. It's a full-time job, salary, benefits, all the, you know, basically it would have basically been a 9 to 5, except a little more fun because it was in fitness. And that could have been the thing to fund the dream. So when this happened, I'm thinking, I'm like, oh, maybe this is the answer to the prayer. Like maybe God was just saying like, here's the job, right? But here's the thing. I got into this, again, I already have kind of like a PTSD from working in fitness and feeling like it was keeping me from actually doing this YouTube. And so I remember saying, okay, it would be stupid for me to not apply to this, even if I don't really want this job. Like I just don't. I feel like that part of my life is kind of over now, but it would be stupid to not apply, right? Just in case. And so I said to God, I said, okay, God, I'm going to give this everything that I got. I'm going to give this application everything that I got. If you do not want me to work here, don't let me get the job. Because I'm going to do, like, basically I'd made up in my mind, I'm going to make it so that if they did deny me, they really just, I wasn't supposed to be there. And the reason I said that prayer is because usually when it comes to being on camera, if I submit to something, I either get called back or I just get it. So I went in. I think I took like maybe 2 weeks. I was doing a lot of writing, just because there was like a lot of things I had to submit. I had to create a video, I had to tell my story. I reached out to one of my mentors who's like, she lives and breathes this work. She's been in production for years at major networks, all this type of stuff. I'm like, yo, help me tell my story. We created this dope thing. So I submitted, and now I'm waiting to hear back. But I feel good about it because I'm like, look, I gave it everything I got. So if they say no, I definitely know God is telling me to go a whole different way. So I didn't hear anything back, and I was like, well, dang, all right. I reached out to the casting directors. I'm like, I ain't hearing nothing. So I reach out, and she's like, oh yeah, actually they decided to go in another direction. And I'm like, oh, okay. Which means I didn't get it. So I'm like, well, dang, all right, God, I heard you. I guess I'm supposed to look into all these things that I feel like are a little bit obscure for me. Anyway, that same day that I was told I didn't get the fitness job, I booked another job in the realm of everything that I've been talking about. Being in front of the camera, being an on-camera talent, all of that. Obviously, it was like a one-time job thing, but it was a pretty big job. And we're going to talk about it. It's actually going to be the next vlog. So you'll see the whole thing. I'm going to tell you the whole story with that. But I shared this part of the story to say, I asked God to basically let me know by either me getting the job or not getting the job in fitness, right? So God not only said, no, you're not doing that job. That same day, God said, you're actually going to go in this direction. So that's essentially how I was able to determine that this, for me, relatively new path was a path that I needed to go down. So when it comes to the practical side, what am I doing for work? I think right now it's like really focusing on finding as many ways as I can to be in front of a camera, whether that's modeling, whether that's figuring out the acting. Obviously you can see I'm very intimidated by this acting thing, or I feel very intimidated by it. But yeah, that's basically where we're at right now. So I'm excited just to like open up a different side of this process in terms of documenting it, right? Like with the vlogs and everything. Like I said, I'm super excited for you to see the vlog for this job that I did get, that basically confirmed that this is the path that we're gonna take to fund the dream in the meantime. Just because I think you'll start to see, first you'll get a different message, right? Because I think the last few vlogs have had a similar message, which is like, okay, we standing on this faith, period. But I think now you can start to see how even in the practical, more worldly realm, how I'm taking that faith and still applying it to sort of like this side of the journey, if that makes sense, right? Because at the end of the day, we still gotta eat, and hopefully I can start making some payments. I shouldn't say hopefully. I am able to now start making some payments. Granted, it's not the full thing, right, in terms of rent and all that, but at least I can sort of, you know, help to improve my case. Okay, now I'm officially rambling, so I'm going to bid you adieu. I'll see you in the next video, baby. It's gonna be a vlog, you already know. And yeah, that's it. Okay, I love you, bye.